"Excuse me, could I sit on your porch until the plow comes through? I won't be any trouble." Daniel Cross looked through the workshop window at the woman standing beneath the porch light. Snow had begun collecting on her dark coat. Her hair was wet, and she was holding one arm against her ribs. "How long have you been standing out there?" "A while, I think. My car went off the county road." "Are you hurt?" "I don't believe so." "You walked here?" "A little over a mile. I saw the light in your workshop window." Daniel opened the door. "In this weather? Ma'am, come inside. I have soup." The woman hesitated. "Oh no, I couldn't. I saw your little girl asleep by the table. I shouldn't come into a stranger's home with a child in it." From inside came a sleepy voice. "Dad?" "I'm right here, Mia." "That lady's shaking." "I know, baby. Should I get Mom's quilt?" Daniel looked at his daughter. "Yes. Bring it here." The woman shook her head. "Sir, truly, I can wait on the porch." Daniel stepped aside. "No, ma'am, you can't." She came inside. Neither of them knew that the woman standing in his doorway would soon become connected to the biggest threat his family had ever faced. And neither knew that the company trying to take Daniel's home belonged to her daughter. Daniel Cross was 39, a widower and the father of an 8-year-old girl. He had $2014 in his checking account. His mortgage was one payment behind. A general contractor still owed him $800 for work he'd completed months earlier, and the detached garage behind his house. The place where he'd built a small estimating business after his wife died was sitting under a city notice threatening to shut him down. The stranger had arrived on one of the worst nights of the winter. Mia returned carrying a faded quilt her mother had sewn the winter before she died. The woman accepted it with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel pulled a stool beside the space heater and warmed a mug of broth on the little hot plate near his drafting table. Nothing about the moment looked important. But years later, Daniel would remember that mug. Not because it was special, because it was the first thing he had given someone when he had almost nothing left to give. The woman introduced herself simply as Margaret. She didn't offer a last name. Daniel didn't ask. What mattered was that she was cold, exhausted, and possibly injured. While he called the county's non-emergency line, Margaret's eyes wandered toward the plans clipped beneath his drafting lamp. One title caught her attention: Harlow Crossing, Vantage Group Redevelopment. Her fingers tightened around the mug. Daniel noticed. He said nothing. The dispatcher told him the roads into Redmere were closed until morning. No tow truck could reach the area. Daniel was instructed to keep Margaret warm and awake and to call again if her condition worsened. So Margaret stayed. By morning, the rain had frozen into a hard shell over everything. Daniel checked on Margaret twice before 5. She was awake both times, but her hands were still trembling. A dark bruise had appeared across her collarbone. As soon as the county plow cleared the road, Daniel drove her to urgent care with Mia bundled into the back seat. Margaret had mild hypothermia, dehydration, and bruised ribs. Nothing was broken. Her rental car, however, would be stuck for several days because a replacement part had been delayed by the storm. Daniel didn't think long before offering the room above his workshop. "You can stay there until your car is fixed." Margaret tried to pay him. He refused. The next afternoon, she went grocery shopping and returned with enough food to fill half his refrigerator. "You didn't have to do that," Daniel told her. "I know." That became the beginning of something none of them expected. Margaret started coming down in the afternoons. Mia adored her. Her thighs. She helped with long division. She fixed a broken backpack strap. She folded the quilt carefully every morning before returning it to the cedar chest. Daniel remained cautious. He was a father raising a child alone. Trust didn't come easily anymore. One evening, Margaret stopped in front of a framed photograph. Sarah Cross stood in a hard hat, an orange safety vest, smiling with one arm around Daniel and the other around a much younger Mia. "She looks like she could run a job site by herself," Margaret said. "She could." Margaret studied the photograph. What happened to her? Daniel stared at his wife for a long moment. A warning got ignored. Margaret didn't ask anything else. She understood that some answers were not invitations to continue. Sarah had been an electrical forewoman for Belcastle Structural. Daniel had worked in construction, estimating, and safety documentation for 17 years. 3 days before Sarah died, Daniel had flagged a temporary stair assembly at a Belcastle distribution site outside Fort Wayne. The load rating on the drawing didn't match the steel that had actually been installed. He filed the warning through the company's internal reporting system. The system recorded it. Someone opened it. Then, somebody marked it resolved. There was no repair report, no second inspection, no explanation. The next morning, the stair assembly shifted during a crew changeover. Sarah was on it. Belcastle's final report blamed her for entering a restricted area without clearance. The insurer used that statement to deny most of the family's claim. The company sent flowers, then a sympathy card, then nothing. Daniel never returned to a job site. Instead, he converted the detached garage into a small estimating business so he could raise Mia himself. It worked for a while, until it didn't. Then came the letter from Redmere. The town wanted to acquire his property for a redevelopment project called Harlow Crossing. The glossy brochure promised luxury apartments, retail space, a boutique hotel, and hundreds of jobs. The public plans showed an access road running north of Birch Hollow. Daniel's house would be untouched. Then a small excavation company accidentally sent him a contractor-grade drainage packet. Daniel discovered another plan. The road didn't run north. It ran straight through Birch Hollow. 9 homes were in its path. His workshop was one of them. The city called the acquisition voluntary. The offer wasn't enough to replace the property, let alone rebuild the business. But money wasn't the only reason Daniel refused. The house contained Sarah's pencil marks on the kitchen door frame, her photographs, her quilt, the workshop where she used to sit beside him and make fun of his handwriting. To Daniel, the house wasn't an asset. It was the last physical place where his daughter still had pieces of her mother. He wasn't going to sell it because someone had found a more profitable use for the land. Margaret's car was eventually repaired. She didn't leave. Instead, she rented a room above the pharmacy and continued visiting the Cross home. Daniel began noticing things. Margaret knew construction terminology. She recognized outdated drainage standards. She could read a redevelopment agreement without having to stop and look up a clause. And whenever Harlow Crossing came up, she became very quiet. Daniel didn't press her. Then he found the second plan. He laid both documents beneath his drafting lamp. The public plan showed the road north of Birch Hollow. The contractor plan sent it straight through the neighborhood. The public plan showed 1 drainage capacity. The contractor version required almost twice as much. Then Daniel checked the soil report. The engineer had signed the report 3 days before the dates listed for the soil samples. Daniel leaned back in his chair. This isn't a revision. Margaret stood behind him. No, this is 2 different stories. Margaret didn't answer. Daniel looked at her. You've seen something like this before. Her expression changed. Daniel. What? She moved closer to the table and carefully turned the drawing toward the lamp. It was a small movement, a practiced one. Someone who had spent years reading plans could do it without thinking. Then she finally spoke. The company trying to take your home. Daniel waited. Belongs to my daughter. He stared at her. Your daughter? Margaret nodded. Claire Voss. Daniel knew the name. Everyone in the region did. Claire Voss was the CEO of Vantage Group, a company worth billions, a company behind Harlow Crossing. Daniel looked from Margaret to the plans, then back to Margaret. Who are you? She took a breath. My full name is Margaret Voss. Daniel said nothing. Margaret continued. And 30 years ago I helped build Vantage. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. He sat at the kitchen table beneath the drafting lamp, staring at the same 2 plans. Margaret's words kept circling through his mind. I helped build Vantage. The woman who had slept beneath his roof was not simply Claire Voss's mother. She was one of the company's founders, and she had been watching Harlow Crossing from inside Daniel's home. By morning, Daniel had one question. How much did you know? Margaret didn't pretend not to understand. Not enough. That isn't an answer. No, she said. It isn't. Daniel pushed the plans aside. I need to know whether you came here because you needed help or because you were investigating my neighborhood. Margaret looked down. I came because my car went into a ditch. And after that, I stayed because I started recognizing things. What things? Things I hoped I was wrong about. 2 weeks after the storm, Redmere held its first public hearing on Harlow Crossing. Daniel arrived early. The manila folder on his lap contained the 2 site plans, drainage calculations, and the soil report. Councilman Roy Talbert sat at the center of the council table. He was the kind of politician who never sounded angry. He didn't need to. He talked about redevelopment, tax revenue, jobs, progress. He called displaced families property consolidation. He called low purchase offers early participation opportunities. When Daniel's name was called, he walked to the podium. Mr. Cross, Talbert said pleasantly, I understand you've declined the city's offer. I have. Daniel placed the public plan beneath the document camera. Then he placed the contractor version beside it. Which one of these did the city approve? Talbert smiled. Technical drawings change throughout a project's life cycle. Then explain this change. Daniel pointed to the road. The public plan keeps the service road north of Birch Hollow. The contractor version runs it through 9 homes. The room went quiet. Daniel continued. The drainage capacity almost doubles in the contractor version, and the soil report was certified before the soil samples were collected. Someone in the audience whispered. Talbert's expression hardened. Daniel didn't raise his voice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an estimator. I've spent 17 years checking whether the numbers on paper match what's actually going to be built. He looked directly at the council. These don't. The city engineer asked to examine the documents. 12 minutes later, the council postponed the vote. 45 days. It wasn't victory, but 9 families had just received 45 more days in their homes. Outside, Margaret was waiting. You delayed a $400 million project with 2 pieces of paper. Daniel shook his head. I delayed a vote. That's all? For tonight. He looked back toward the courthouse. 9 families got 45 more days. Margaret nodded. That matters. By Monday morning, someone had found a way to make Daniel pay for the delay. A city inspector arrived at his workshop with a clipboard. His home occupation permit was suspended. The reason was an outdated occupancy classification. Daniel had never had customers physically visit the workshop. The inspector knew that. Daniel knew that. It didn't matter. The fine was several $1,000s. The upgrades would cost tens of thousands. 2 clients canceled within 48 hours after receiving anonymous messages claiming Daniel's business was under investigation. By Friday, his bank balance had fallen below $150. That afternoon, Mia came downstairs carrying an envelope decorated with stars. Inside were $43, her science museum savings. I don't need to go, she said. Daniel stared at her. Mia, you need it more. He closed the envelope and put it back in her hands. That isn't your bill to carry. But Dad, I need you to be 8 years old. She looked confused. That's your job right now. School, cartoons, homework, and telling me when my grilled cheese is burnt. It is burnt. It's toasted. It is burnt. For the first time that week, Daniel laughed. It didn't last long, but it was enough. Margaret had watched from the doorway. The next morning, Daniel found her suitcase beside the front door. You're leaving. I think I should. Why? Because Talbert knows I'm here now. Daniel picked up the suitcase. You don't get to decide that. I don't want to be the reason you lose what's left. You aren't. You don't know that. I know you're not. From the hallway came Mia's voice. Are you still coming Sunday, Miss Ellie? Margaret looked toward her. Yes. Mia smiled. Good. Margaret turned back to Daniel. I'll stay. But Margaret still hadn't told him everything. Her real story went back 30 years. She and her husband had founded Vantage Group when it was 4 employees operating from an office above a hardware store. The company grew, then grew again. Margaret eventually left the board after raising repeated concerns about a structural contractor named Corrigan Framing. The complaints were always similar. Safety warnings marked, resolved without documentation. Inspection dates changed after the fact. Second inspections skipped. Supervisors praised for finishing early despite unresolved safety issues. The company lawyers told Margaret that she was making accusations she couldn't prove. Claire, her daughter and Vantage's future CO, believed her mother was overreacting. Their relationship deteriorated. Margaret left the board, but she never stopped looking. And then she saw the Harlow Crossing plans. Corrigan Framing was the lead structural contractor. The same company, the same patterns, the same paperwork. She had come to Redmere because she needed proof, not suspicion, proof. 3.5 weeks after the storm, Margaret finally put a worn leather folder on Daniel's kitchen table. Inside were dozens of documents, old safety complaints, inspection records, emails, internal correspondence, and one name appeared again and again. Corrigan Framing. Daniel opened the cabinet where he kept Sarah's file. He placed it beside Margaret's documents. Then he pulled out the original warning he'd filed before Sarah died. Margaret looked at the tracking code. Her face went pale. What? That system? What about it? It's the same reporting architecture Corrigan uses now. Daniel pulled up the activity history. The warning had been submitted Monday morning. It had been opened twice. At 2:36 p.m. The following afternoon, the status had changed to resolved. There was no repair report, no second inspection, no calculation, nothing. Sarah died the next morning. Daniel stared at the screen. For 14 months, he told himself the warning might have been lost, overlooked, buried in paperwork. Now he knew better. They saw it. Margaret's voice was quiet. Yes. And someone closed it. Yes. Daniel leaned back. He had imagined this moment hundreds of times. He'd imagined rage. He'd imagined relief. Instead, he felt empty. Sarah hadn't died because nobody knew there was a problem. Someone knew. Someone simply decided the problem could wait. Margaret reached for Daniel's phone. I need to call my daughter. Daniel didn't stop her. Tonight? Tonight. Claire answered on the second ring. Margaret told her to come to Redmere and to bring the company's director of compliance. Claire's first question was whether her mother was safe. Margaret said yes. Then, she said, the other question is whether the company you built is. There was silence. Then Claire asked for Daniel's name. When Margaret said it, Claire recognized the surname. Sarah Cross. The widow. The safety dispute. The claim that had passed through Vantage's legal department years earlier. Claire had seen the name. She had simply never connected it to a real family. I'll come, she said. Claire arrived 4 days later. She came in a black SUV with her compliance director, Priya Anand. There were no cameras, no assistants, no press release. Claire walked into Daniel's kitchen expecting to find an angry homeowner and a mother who had become emotionally involved in someone else's dispute. Instead, she found Margaret wearing one of Sarah's old cardigans. Mia was sitting beside her, working on long division. Daniel stood at the counter, cutting the crust off his daughter's sandwich. Priya opened the first folder. Mia looked up. Are you Miss Ellie's daughter? Claire smiled faintly. I am. She was really cold that night. Claire looked at her mother, then at Daniel, then at the old quilt folded over the back of a chair. Something in her expression changed. She sat down. Daniel placed the 2 site plans on the table, Sarah's warning beside them, the permit suspension on top. I don't want money, he said. Claire looked at him. Brasses, I want 3 things. He pointed to Sarah's file. Reopen my wife's case. Then, the permit. Get an independent inspector to review what the city did to my business. Then the Harlow Crossing plans. And stop hiding the road plan from the people whose houses are sitting on it. Claire picked up Sarah's warning. She read it once, then again. This went through Corrigan. Yes, Daniel said. I can't stop a $400 million project because my mother has concerns about a contractor. Margaret stiffened. Claire looked at her. I need proof. That's what I tried to give you 3 years ago. You gave me complaints. I gave you warnings. You gave me warnings I couldn't prove. Margaret's voice became quiet. And now? Claire didn't answer. She turned to Priya, pulled the tracking metadata. Priya opened her laptop. From the copy on the table? No. From our own servers. Daniel watched her work. 40 minutes passed. Then Priya looked up. It matches. Claire didn't move. Are you certain? Same submission, same access records, same status change. 2:46 p.m. Claire stared at the screen. There's no repair documentation. No. No inspection? No. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. Freeze every active Corrigan project under Vantage. Priya looked at her. All of them? All of them. That could cost millions. Claire looked toward Sarah's photograph. I know. Margaret spoke quietly. Apparently we should have paid that cost a long time ago. Claire looked at her mother. For the first time in years, neither woman looked away. The investigation took 6 weeks. It wasn't dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no convenient confession. Instead, there were audits, records, interviews, emails, contractor files, old inspection reports. The kind of evidence that takes time because truth rarely arrives with perfect timing. Vantage reopened Sarah's case. State investigators received the original tracking data. Corrigan framing was removed from Harlow Crossing. Several active contracts were suspended while their safety records were reviewed. And then came the second Harlow Crossing hearing. Claire Voss stood at the podium herself. Roy Talbot was gone. He had resigned 2 weeks earlier, citing personal reasons. Nobody in Redmere believed that explanation. Claire looked at the council, then at the families of Birch Hollow. Vantage Group circulated a contractor plan that differed materially from the plan presented to residents. The room was silent. That was wrong. She didn't say unfortunate. She didn't say misunderstood. She didn't say technical discrepancy. She said it was wrong. Then she announced that Vantage was withdrawing the contractor road plan. Birch Hollow would remain untouched. The service road would run north, as residents had originally been told. Daniel sat in the third row. He didn't clap. Neither did Margaret. They simply listened. Because trust should come after accountability, not before it. Daniel's home occupation permit was reinstated several weeks later. The city quietly withdrew the original citation after an independent review found no legitimate reason for the suspension. 2 clients returned. They apologized. Daniel accepted. He understood something about fear that he hadn't understood before. Sometimes people don't need to be cruel to hurt you. Sometimes they just need to believe an official-looking letter more than they believe the person standing in front of them. Margaret stayed in Redmere. Eventually, Daniel convinced her to move back into the room above the workshop. She stopped trying to pay rent. She also stopped pretending she had somewhere else she needed to be. Claire and Margaret began talking again. Not like nothing had happened. That would have been dishonest. They talked carefully, slowly. Sometimes they disagreed. Sometimes they sat together without speaking. But they were speaking. And that was something Claire visited twice that spring. Both times she arrived without an assistant. Both times she ended up at Daniel's kitchen table helping Mia with homework. On her second visit, Claire stopped in front of Sarah's photograph. Daniel came to stand beside her. Claire was quiet for a while. Then she said, "I'm sorry." Daniel didn't answer immediately. "I know it doesn't undo 14 months, she continued. "No, I know." He looked at Sarah's photograph. "My wife believed that if someone found real danger, the people above them would do something about it." Claire lowered her eyes. "For 14 months I stopped believing that." He turned toward her. "You reopening that file?" He paused. "That didn't bring her back." "I know, but it put something back." Claire nodded. "What?" "Trust." She swallowed. "I'm glad." Daniel looked at the photograph again. "So am I." Mia turned 9 that September. Margaret baked the birthday cake. It leaned slightly to one side. The frosting wasn't level. Nobody cared. Mia blew out the candles while Daniel stood behind her and Claire held the plate steady. Afterward, Mia looked at Margaret. "Are you still coming Sunday?" Margaret smiled. "Yes." "Promise?" "Promise." The workshop reopened for good in October. Mia made Daniel a sign with the marker set Margaret had bought her, cross-estimating. Underneath, in smaller letters, "Es twice." Twice. Daniel never explained the joke to his clients. Mia did, usually in great detail. Daniel still checked smoke alarms before the batteries expired. He still read safety notices twice. He still checked numbers other people assumed were correct. That part of him never disappeared, and he stopped wishing it would, because he finally understood something. Being careful wasn't the same as being powerless. 14 months earlier, a warning had been ignored. It had cost him his wife. This time, another warning had been heard. Not because Daniel was powerful. He wasn't. He had no money to threaten anyone with. No lawyers waiting on retainer. No influential friends. He had 2 pieces of paper, a daughter, a memory, and the courage to stand in a public room and say, "These numbers don't match." That was enough to start the truth moving. Daniel never got Sarah back. No one in Redmere pretended otherwise. What he got instead was smaller. A home his daughter could keep. A business he could rebuild. A town that couldn't claim it hadn't been warned. A mother and daughter who found their way back toward each other. And the little girl who still asked every Sunday whether Miss Ellie was coming over. She always got the same answer. Yes. And after everything they had lost, that simple word meant more than anyone in that house could explain.